What's up and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be doing my most exciting video of the year and I'll be talking about my favorite books of 2021. This was an amazing reading year for me. I started it with a reading goal of 10 books. That's what I wanted to do in the first place. And then once I realized that I was actually officially back into reading, I upped my goal to 50 books. And as of today, which we're not the last day of the year, but like I'm filming this in advance, you know. As of today, what's the date? It's Tuesday, the last Tuesday of the year. As of today, I have read officially 76 books, which is actually insane. I have gotten so close to 100 books, which is actually crazy. Yeah, I can't wait for next year. It's so crazy to think that at the beginning of the year, actually, it was a challenge for me to just get back into reading, and I was just like, that's my goal this year. Like, that's one of my like resolutions. I don't really like to call them resolutions, more like goals. And one of my goals this year was to get back into reading because I used to be the biggest bookworm when I was in elementary school, and then I kind of fell off reading mid-high school years, and I just never understood why I did that. And this year really showed me that like it's not that I ever stopped loving reading. It was more like I was in the biggest reading slump of my life for like 5-6 years. Now I'm back. So 2021, really great reading year. As of today, I have read 26,000 pages according to Goodreads, which is actually insane. I have 10 books here today to talk about. They are not ranked. I've decided that I'm not interested in rating them from worst to best or from best to worst. I don't think it's necessary. I have enjoyed every single one of these books for different reasons, and I have rated all of these 5 stars this year, and some of these are actually going down in my history as like some of my favorite books of all time forever, and I'll always have a special place in my heart. I don't think it's that serious for me to rank them, especially considering they're like all such different books with different genres. Ranking just was a headache that I was not down for. It was already a headache trying to figure out my top 10 favorite books. I was just like, I'm not gonna rank them. I'm just not doing that to myself. It's just a lot. And I do have one honorary mention that I'm gonna mention at the end. No order, just gonna go in. I just stacked them in a big pile, like all my books, and I'm just gonna go in and just talk to you about the books I like this year. First one I will say is the book that got me back into reading. I found out about this book through Noelle Gallagher, who's a YouTuber. She was so giddy every time she talked about this book, and she loved it so much that I was just like, okay, that sounds cute. And it's a romance, and I was like, this better work, like this better get me back into reading. And I got this book and I read it, and from there on I started reading a ton of other books, and that book is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. You know, there's like mixed reviews about this book, which I feel like reading is very subjective, but this will forever be the book that I look at and I'm like, you got me back into reading. Emotional, sentimental value that I have towards this book. Now that I've read more romances, I know that this is not like the top tier romance that I put it on back in January of this year, but I'll always like appreciate it and love it for what it was. It brought me a lot of like comfort, and it made me realize that like, oh, there's like books like this, like romances like this that exist. Like when I was younger, I was really into more like fantasy and like sci-fi books, whereas I didn't know it was books like this, adult romance contemporary books that were this good. Well, I just remember like feeling super like happy reading it, and I remember wanting to reach for it every single day. Like every morning I had my little routine at the beginning of the year. I'd wake up and I would read like 5 chapters, and I loved the sunshine grumpy trope. Like, eat it up, like exactly. If you don't know about this book, it's a workplace romance, enemies to lovers. Loose on the term enemies. I still love this. I will always cherish it, hold it really close to my heart. And it's the first book I tabbed, and I was like super shy with the tabs. Like, it's super cute, and I didn't even really know what I was doing. I was just like highlighting and stuff. Very cute. And I was using these ugly tabs that are like clear and then color. I hate these tabs now. I don't use that, and I don't highlight in yellow, but that's a story for another day. Next up, this book is a thriller mystery. I was so obsessed with not only the plot, the storyline, but also the characters, and it stuck with me for a very long time. And that's One of Us is Lying by Karen McManus. This is 5 student, you've probably heard about this, but 5 students, they go to detention and only 4 of them come out alive, and they're trying to figure out who did it, who killed the one student, which is Simon. I loved it. I think it was so like fast paced, but it kept me like engaged, and I really loved the characters. They were so well written, so well developed. Definitely gives you Breakfast Club vibes, so if you've seen that movie and you like it, you'll definitely enjoy this. The author has even said that she was inspired by that vibe, the tension vibe and stuff from that movie, so I really loved it. I miss Bronwyn and Nate. I know there's a show that came out inspired by this. I watched the first 3 episodes and I wasn't like a fan which I'm not usually a fan of any Hollywood adaptation of any book, so except like Twilight. I love the book and I recommend it, and it's like red sprayed edges, which I love, and yeah, it will stick with me for a long time. Next book I read, I actually read it very recently, and it is A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. I give this 5 stars. This brought me so much joy. This is the second book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. I can't say much about it without spoiling the plot, but basically in this you get slow burn romance. I hate you too, I will die for you. A man praising his woman, like just 10 out of 10. Highly recommend the series. I'm actually currently reading the 3rd one, which is A Court of Wings and Ruin. But this get 5 star, like 100%. It's really big, it's really long, but once you get through the first half, it gets real, like just yes. This is very, very heavily character based, but there is a plot. Like, people will say like there's no plot. There is a plot. It's just like they're not really reading for the plot, girly. You know what you're here for, and it's okay, you know. Next book was so 10 out of 10. This author is actually, I just realized this author is on my list twice because she did what she had to do, and that is Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book, if you love drama, if you love Hollywood, like old school vibes, if you liked Evelyn Hugo by the same author, if you like music, and if you like romance, this is it for you. Like, this is it. I love the writing style in this. It's written in an interview format, so it's so easy to read, super digestible. Like, the characters are to die for. Like, you will love every single one of them. There's 7 characters. It's written from like there's like 7 point of views because they're getting interviewed. Basically follows this group, this rock band that was formed in the 70s, sorry, the late 60s. Main singer of the band is Daisy Jones, and the rest of the band is the Six, and you get to see how they come together. You get to see behind the scene, like them in the studio, them working together, them getting to know each other and stuff within the band, and you get to see the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's so good, and it's written so in a way that's so realistic that you will be mad at some of the characters. You'll be like, why are you doing this? It's like such a realistic book, and I loved Daisy, and I loved Karen, and I love Graham, and I love Billy, and I love Camilla. I love all of them. They're great. I heard that the audiobook is even better, so I might, you know, next year do a little reread the audiobook version. They're making a show about this, and I just have a vibe that it's gonna be good. Like, although I just said I'm not a fan of Hollywood adaptations, I think this one is gonna be like done very well. I saw the cast and I was like, I see some. Next book is actually the 2nd book in a series that I made an entire video about, and it's Hideaway by Penelope Douglas. Because I have a video about the series, I'm gonna try not to go on and on and on about this. 2nd book in the Devil's Night series by Penelope Douglas. I ate this book up. This is my favorite boy in the series, which is Kai Mori with his girl Banks. Because it's the 2nd book in the series, I can't talk about it too much, but literally a gem of a book. Kai is just the dream man, and he's everything, and I love him dearly. And this is a dark romance or adult series. I suggest looking up trigger warnings. I suggest watching that video that I made about it, and just doing your research before you engage in this series. But I definitely recommend it for anybody of age, and I'll never talk about it enough. Hideaway. Next book is a book that I read because 1, I wanted to read it, but also 2, because I am doing a minor in criminology in university, and one of my classes this semester was on victimhood and victims. We had to write papers on case or like a study of a victim of our choice. And I knew about this book. I heard that this book talked about victimhood, so I picked my Dark Vanessa for my class, but also I was really intrigued in reading this book. I heard that it was hard to read, that it was difficult. I did not expect it to impact me the way that it did. But my Dark Vanessa by Kate Elizabeth Russell, 5 out of 5 star, one of my favorite books, not only of the year, but it's going down definitely as one of my favorite books of all time. This is the story of Vanessa Y, who is a 15-year-old girl who gets groomed by her 42-year-old English teacher, Jacob Strain. The story is told in 2 timelines, so we get to see when the origin of her abuse story comes about, and then fast forward in 2017, years later, when there's accusations that come around about Strain abusing other girls from the boarding school that Vanessa went to. The story unfolds and we follow Vanessa and years later and how she deals with the remnants and her trauma. The story is shocking, it's troubling, it's not easy to read. There are really triggering scenes. I'm so glad that I got to work on this because it got me to read this book with a lot of perspective, in the sense of like really seeing Vanessa in the eye as a victim, although she herself in the book does not view herself as one, and she really romanticizes a lot of what is happening to her. It's I could talk about this for hours, honestly. It's just so well done, and it made me so intrigued about Kate Elizabeth Russell, and I really want to read more of her writing. Next book I read, a lot lighter, a lot fluffier side, okay? It's a romance, and it came out this summer, and I bought it on a whim because the books I've loved, which is a book content creator that I love, she recommended this, and I was just like, okay, I'm down. Like, and I found it randomly at Walmart, and I was just like, okay, Walmart got the goods, like, what's up? It Happened One Summer by Tessa Bailey. Like, this book, yeah. Yo. 10 out of 10. Like, this, I will shove this down everybody's throat. I don't know how she did it, Miss Tessa Bailey. I don't know how she did this. Honestly, she didn't have to come this hard. Like, it follows Piper, who's like a socialite, like very famous Instagram girl. Like, she comes from a family that has money, and she kind of depends on her parents to like pay for her stuff. She doesn't really work or do anything. They get tired of her shit. They're like, all right, like, you're not really doing anything. We're gonna send you back to the hometown, your mother's hometown, and you're gonna stay there, and we're gonna see how long you can live by yourself and like sustain yourself, basically. She meets Mr. Brandon Tagar, Mr. Fisherman. Like, at first he sees her and he's like, who is this LA bimbo girl coming in this city? Like, we're not with the dumb blondies, you know what I mean? And then things that switch around pretty fast, and he catches feelings, and the rest is history. Honestly, highly recommend. Brandon Tagar is dream man. Like, honestly, love him so much. He has like such an old school way about him. He's so sweet and gentle with his girl, and this is traditionally published, but don't let it fool you, because ladies, the spice in this. The next book had me in a chokehold, still has me in a chokehold. I still think about these characters every day. I haven't reread it because this year I was like trying to focus on reading new books. I will be rereading this next year for sure, because this is like golden for me. Punk 57 by Penelope Douglas. This is a story of Misha and Ryan, pen pals, and then one day they stop writing to each other, and Ryan is confused. Comes to find out Misha moved and switched schools and ends up going to the same school as Ryan, which they have never seen each other's face. So Ryan has no idea that this is Misha. Misha actually knows that the girl is Ryan. He knows who she is. And it unfolds from there. They kind of loved each other in letters and when they were pen pals, but in real life really dislike each other. Misha is like, this is not the girl that I know, this is not the Ryan I know. Very enemies to lovers, high school romance, bully romance, super dark, not for everybody, but I loved it so much. It's just like 100% gonna be one of my like comfort reads. Like, this is a world and these are characters that I will want to come back to forever. Like, I'll never not love this. Next book is Six of Crows by Leigh Bardugo. Amazing young adult fantasy novel. Follows 6 outcasts, criminals, thieves. They get together for one incredible heist. That's all you need to know. Go into it like a really blind. Even if you're not a really big fantasy reader, you are gonna enjoy this. You do not need to read the Shadow and Bone trilogy to read this. I have not read that, and I will not read that because I heard that it's not that great. You can just go into this blind and like really fully enjoy it. These characters are amazing. I love Kaz, I love Inej, I love Nina. I will definitely be rereading this next year and annotating it to Filth. And I have an entire video of me raving about not only this book but also Crooked Kingdom, which is the last novel in this duology. And yeah, the last book in my top 10, I really looking because I don't want the tower to fall, but the last book in my top 10 had me literally bawling my eyes when I finished reading it. I have never forgotten this story and this woman, and this book is The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. I read this really early on in the year and I still remember so many details and just the plot line of this book. I loved it. This is so well loved, and for a reason. It's just amazing. I also suggest going into this like pretty much blind. All you have to know is like Evelyn Hugo is a Hollywood icon. She's at the end of her career and she's like, okay, I'm ready to tell all. And she makes this like, she does this sit down interview with this girl called Monique, and she does an interview talking about her whole life and her 7 husbands, you know. And this is so like Hollywood vibes and like the backstage of like being an actress, being a Hollywood actress, being a woman of color in Hollywood as well, because Evelyn Hugo is Latin. It's such a big book, like it's such an important book for representation for women of color, which I love. I don't even want to talk about it too much because I don't want to give anything away. It's one of those books that the least you know, the better. It will definitely have you sobbing, and you will either absolutely love or hate Evelyn, but it's like it's a good thing. Like, yeah, I love her as a woman, and she did what she had to do, period. So these are my 10 favorite books for 2021. I do have one honorary mention. I did give this book 4 stars. It has the potential for 5-star, but it had a very slow beginning. I've been thinking about this book for months, even after reading it, and it's one of those books that I cannot wait to pick back up again and reread and annotate. And these characters have stuck with me so much and have made me question things in real life. Their story like really stuck with me. And this is Tryst x Venom by Penelope Douglas. This is another bully romance, but this time between 2 girls. So it is Olivia and Clay's story. It's a slow burn, so it's like 600 pages, very long. But it's a beautiful book. Like, just talking about the paperback, like it has these illustrations. It's stunning inside. Really worth the money, really worth picking up. This story had me like in a chokehold. When I finished reading this, I just felt like no romance will ever be as good. Like, I love these girls with all my heart, especially Olivia. Like, it's bully romance, it's adult romance, it's set in high school as well. You check the trigger warnings before reading this, but I loved it. I know it is not Penelope's most popular book, but there's something about it that I loved so much. And these characters are just amazing. Definitely recommend. It gets a really deep. And that is a wrap for my favorite books of 2021. Like, I talked for way longer than I thought I was gonna talk for. Thank you so much for watching this video. Give me a little like, a little thumbs up, and subscribe. I'll see you in my next video, which will be coming sooner than you think.